31 degrees, pretty pleasant evening in the Bay Area.
We just arrived after a long flight today in Mountain View, and I'm really looking forward to the week, especially to meet the people here in the Silicon Valley and to hear their stories about their startups.
So first of all, it's good to start with assumptions, because most people get excited about something that touches themselves and their own lives. That's a great start.
And the key is read like crazy. Consume as much content as you can, and hopefully you'll see the magic pattern that sparks and takes you to the right startup at the right time.
I think novelty in itself is not something to strive for. Maybe the solution to the problem that you identify already exists, but for some reason it's not being used. Maybe it has to do with lowering the cost, maybe there's cultural stigma surrounding it that prevents people from using it.
Take this thing which is in your head, put it on a piece of paper and start mulling it over, like really try to dissect like the idea.
Don't try and build a business out of just the technology, right? So you really need to be thinking about what problems are you solving.
Go out, go beyond your network of friends and family, and meet people that you've never talked before, and see if your hypotheses are still valid, and meet some new user types. It's fun and it's exciting.
Find other like-minded people that will encourage you to follow your path, and maybe participate in organizations, global organizations, and support each other in growing in that direction.
So I really think that you can't go and just find your co-founder. And there's exceptions to this, but 99% of the time it's like telling you have a week, find a wife that you're gonna marry and be happy with your whole life. It is the exact same fucking thing, right? Very hard to accomplish. You might get lucky and make it happen, but it's not what I would try to do. What you're trying to do is, what you want to do more is go date. Date a bunch of people. Go date, mingle, go out, have fun, meet people, and whenever it clicks, it'll click.
Stereotyping, like the American guys probably sell first before they build. In Germany we tend to build first before we sell, right? And if we sell, then we have very often a very excellent product, whereas here it's really an alpha or beta version of a product.
While you're in stealth mode, you're still selling. You're always selling, right? And you're always talking to customers and engaging them. You're doing beta projects, alpha projects, so that you learn from customers, take their feedback. You have to have customer obsession, where you're listening to customers and really obsessed about what their requirements and needs are.
Getting investment from venture capital should not be the goal, right? It's, the goal should be that you're building a business that actually is solving problems, and is actually building value, right? If you're building something of value, smart investors will find you, and they will come and they'll add value to helping you build a better business.
It's hard work, it's not easy, but hard in the sense that intellectually hard, making tough decisions, come up with creative ideas, not hard in the sense of like pain or something. being sleep deprived or deprived of a social life or deprived of like health is a good thing. I don't think so. I think that's like too glorified.
The question is really, can you be more than just a technical founder, right? Can you inspire other people? Can you sell your idea or sell your product? Can you move into a CEO role from being a technical founder into can you lead a team and a company? I think that's a different challenge, right? Founding is not the challenge. The challenge is really successfully building or scaling something.
Lean startup is great in the beginning of your company, but really understand that it's good for like in the early phases of building, and it's not super awesome when like once you found your thing and like you need to like execute on it.
So first of all, hypergrowth is not a problem per se. It's a lucky case where you're successful and you keep growing like faster than you might think. It can be a problem for companies that don't expect it or that cannot handle hypergrowth. A typical problem that you have is that in the early stages of a startup, you have like a bunch of people that are great and passionate, but they do not have like the necessary experience to run a company that is suddenly like 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 people strong. So you have to keep up with hiring. You have to just anticipate growth as you're in hypergrowth. Only change is permanent, so you change all the time, and you have to be flexible enough to cater to that. You cannot assume that a company in hypergrowth follows the same rules as like a startup or an established company of a much larger size. I would say, it's good if you have kind of an idea where this is going, but it's also an interesting opportunity to do things that do not scale. I gave you that example of the photography program in the early days of Airbnb, where the founders went out and they took essentially pictures at people's places with their own cameras to make those listings look better. In some cases, even though that might never scale to like all users, it is actually necessary to do those kind of things. In our case, it does in fact scale, and we now work with thousands of photographers worldwide to provide the best quality listings. And it did actually work out really well.
Really be selective in terms of who you're actually interviewing, and make sure that you're kind of creating an environment where you're efficient in terms of the interview process and you're finding the right type of people.
Sometimes work long hours to push something through, but overall I think that being productive is really important, and the longer you work, the lazier you are in terms of how you value your time.
If I could tell you who the next Google or Twitter or something is, then I wouldn't be standing here. No. Microsoft said this, like famously, Bill Gates in the late 90s, that he doesn't know where the next Microsoft will be, but the only thing he knows for sure is that there will be some grad student somewhere working on something that will be as big as Microsoft.
So Internet of Things, I think, is one of the huge trends. I think there's still a lot of room in software design in terms of like what we do with big data. So we're collecting more and more and more data, and obviously Internet of Things will generate so much more data. So how do you make sense out of the signal versus noise ratio? So that's the second huge trend. The third huge trend I'm seeing is we have about 2 billion people connected to the internet today, with a planet where we've got like 7 billion people living, 7 billion people. So there's 5 billion people who are not connected to the internet. Like, it's a massive market. So if I were to create a company today, I would not build my company in what is called the first world. I would definitely go to emerging markets because it's so much bigger as an opportunity.
If you're passionate about something and you like to make the world a better place with improving something or disrupting something even, right, then give it a shot, right? And I can tell you it's a fun journey, and it's not easy, but it's a lot of fun, it's a lot of learning. If it fails, get up and do it again with something else. And if not, the corporate career is still there.
We celebrate failure here. So failure is part of the business. If you don't fail, you haven't tried hard enough. And so in that sense, it's just part of the plan. If you fail, you get up and you try something different, and you pushed real hard. If you don't fail, you're not taking enough risk.